Iran commissions new carrier warship for overseas helicopter and drone operations. Iran has commissioned the first of a new class of warship into active service, the Iranian Makran forward base ship, which appears to be a makeshift carrier built to deploy helicopters and drones to support overseas operations. Although large at around 250 meters long, the warship is based on the hull of an oil tanker and lacks the capabilities for combat operations that purpose-built helicopter carriers such as the South Korean Dokdo class have, lacking the weaponry, speed or armor needed for high or medium-intensity combat. The Makran is nevertheless potentially ideal for the kind of missions the Iranian military has engaged in over the past decades, namely supporting ground troops against non-state insurgent forces such as Islamic State and al-Nusra Front forces in Syria and Iraq, or previously the Taliban in Afghanistan. The carrier also has applications against state adversaries, and can be used to launch reconnaissance aircraft in peacetime, when the ship itself is unlikely to be threatened by enemy attacks. Although Iran's defense sector is overall somewhat unremarkable, one area in which it had proven outstanding has been its drone program. Stealth drones such as the Shahed 171 have been used for reconnaissance missions in the past and proven extremely difficult to neutralize when operating in Israeli airspace, and a challenge to even detect for U.S. forces. Beyond reconnaissance, the Iranian Makran can potentially be used to launch drones for combat missions, with aircraft such as the Shahed 129 having been tested and proven capable in combat. Although Iran lacks advanced attack helicopter designs, it does deploy indigenous Shahed 285 and legacy American AH-1J platforms which can be used for combat missions. The new ship's ability to accommodate such aircraft remains questionable, however, although lighter helicopters can potentially be used for other purposes such as search and rescue or reconnaissance. Other missions for the Iranian Makran was built to perform include deploying special forces, serving as a base for speedboats, providing logistical and medical support, and transporting and operating radar and missile systems. This last point is notable as it could mean the ship was designed to be able to deploy some of the country's indigenous air defense systems such as the Bavar 373 or Khordad 15, which would make it a potential threat in combat despite its somewhat makeshift design and lack of armor. Iran's plan to swarm American carrier strike groups with drones, speedboats, submarines and cruise missiles. Tensions continue to rise between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran. The risk of armed confrontation between the two powers has grown considerably as the former reportedly contemplates strikes on the latter's nuclear sites, while Tehran for its part threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz to international shipping. Should either part pursue such illegal and highly provocative actions, it is likely to spark a major regional war dwarfing recent conflicts in Iraq, Syria and Yemen. An analysis of the means both powers have to wage a potential war is thus increasingly relevant as relations further deteriorate. While Iran is militarily by far the weakest of the America's four great power adversaries, with the size and sophistication of its armed forces surpassed considerably by China, North Korea and Russia, its military has nevertheless prepared extensively for several decades for a potential conflict with the United States. Alongside sizable investments in ballistic missiles, air defense and special operations forces, the Iranian military has also invested heavily in strengthening its anti-ship capabilities. With the waters of the Persian Gulf expected to be a key focal point in any conflict with the United States, and considering the central place of the U.S. Navy's carrier strike groups to any potential attack plan against Iran, the strength of Iranian naval and anti-ship capabilities remains a key and decisive factor not only in determining the outcome of a potential conflict, but also in deterring the U.S. from initiating such action. At face value, Iran's surface navy appears meager in its capabilities to say the least. dwarfed by the might of even a single American carrier strike group, and in the event of war several such strike groups, most likely 3 or more, fully equipped with fighter jets are expected to be operating near Iranian shores. While the lack of carriers, a power projection asset, are hardly a hindrance should Iran be fighting a defensive war near or in its own waters within range of its air bases. The country lacks any destroyers in fields, just 4 frigates and 3 corvettes. These warships are all either dated pre-Vietnam War era designs or indigenous platforms of questionable quality, hardly considered a challenge for the American surface fleet. Iran's main strengths at sea, however, come not from its large surface warships as in the case of the United States, but rather from asymmetric warfare capabilities designed specifically to counter the U.S. Navy and those of its allies on the country's own terms. One of Iran's primary assets are its vast arsenal of anti-ship cruise missiles, which launched from the country's combat aircraft such as the F-4D Phantom, Psyche and Su-22 can skim the surface of the Gulf's waters to strike American warships at long ranges. Iranian Phantoms are considerably faster and fly at far higher altitudes than any fighters currently deployed by American carriers, and their indigenously manufactured Nasser and Qatar cruise missiles, closely based on the Chinese C-704 and C-802 and developed with assistance from Beijing, can be deployed with state-of-the-art anti-jamming capabilities which, combined with their low approach vectors, make them extremely difficult to intercept. With these missiles expected to be launched in their hundreds, the threat posed to American carrier groups by these assets is great indeed. Iran fields a number of less prolific cruise missile designs which serve in complementary roles to the Nasser and Qatar, and according to a number of reports the country has sought to acquire the Russian Kh-31, a highly formidable asset with a range approaching 200 kilometers, depending on the variant, with an impact speed of 3.5 times the speed of sound. The kinetic energy of this missile's impact alone is enough to disable a medium-sized warship, while its speed and trajectory leave slim prospects for successful interception by the Aegis systems deployed by American destroyers and cruisers to defend their carriers.